Hello, my friends. My name is Ryan Freeman. Welcome to my life. Today I'm going to talk about private English teaching. Have you ever wanted to teach private English lessons to adult students, or maybe not adult students? I'm going to talk about some of my experiences. I recently had a very interesting one. I'll tell you about that after I talk about some of my previous experiences. So in China, I had a couple English students who actually wanted to study English. My first two private English students actually were interested in studying English. One was a high school student. Her mom wanted her to have lessons. I would go to her house. This lasted for a couple months. And then she didn't want any more lessons. I had a married woman. Similar story. She wanted to improve her English for business. That lasted not that long. A lot of private English lessons do fizzle out. Then I had another one who was not interested. This was interested really in studying English. She was looking for a husband. She was a really successful business lady, and we ended up dating. Then I moved to Japan, and I had a lot of private English lessons there. I did have some students like doctors. I had a doctor, a man who worked in the government, some other business professionals who actually did want to study English. Then I had a lot of others that were not so interested in studying English, or some of them just needed a friend. Some of them just needed a confidant, and my private lessons with them sometimes just ended up being like I was like a cheap therapist, to hear their problems and give them encouragement. They could open up to me a lot. I think it's a generalization to say this, but I do feel that in Asian culture, there is this belief that you can be very open with foreigners because they're very open. You could beat yourself around them. I've had a lot of people tell me that. And I'm a pretty open person, and maybe I confirm that stereotype because I do like to hear stories of all kinds, and I try not to judge people, and I'm pretty accepting of people's lives and whatnot. So sometimes I was just a friend, and a friend that you paid $30 an hour to sit in a cafe and talk with. And there were others in Japan that I had, private English students, who were actually looking for boyfriends or flings or husbands, and you could kind of tell pretty quickly because the way they're dressed, if they're showing you their goods right away and they're not really focusing on the English words that you're writing down, and they're trying to make an impression, wouldn't I be a good woman to procreate with? So I've had, and some of these lessons with these women, if I had chemistry with them, I did end up having flings with them in Tokyo. So I'm not going to go into detail on those stories. I could if you want me to. You could write down in the comments, give me some of those spicy private English teaching stories. I could tell you some, boys and girls, but I'm not going to on this, because I want to get to this private English lesson that I had here in Taipei. I'm in Taoyuan, which is not far from Taipei. It's about a 30-minute train or bus ride. But of course, I got to get to the train station from my house, which is like a 15-minute bicycle ride. So it's about a 45, 50-minute journey. Sometimes you have to wait for the train. So it's not super convenient, but not super inconvenient to get to Taipei. And I normally would not travel to give a private lesson. I'm not that crazy about making some extra bucks unless it's pretty convenient or very lucrative. And I don't think private English teaching is going to get you that much money here in Taiwan unless you work something out with a really good prospect, or it just happens to fit your schedule. So this did not. So why did I do it? Why did I travel to Taipei to give my first private English lesson? Well, I did it because one of my coworkers, a woman around my age, a few years younger, that I have recently become well acquainted with, she asked me if I would do it for her cousin. And I kind of had a suspicion that it wasn't really about studying English. I kind of had a suspicion that she was trying to set me up with her cousin. Of course, I can't make that assumption until I go there and meet her. So I thought, I'm going to go to Taipei to meet her cousin, who she connected us in an app, a messaging app that's very popular here in Taiwan called Line. In fact, it's the #1 communication app here in Taiwan, also in Japan. So if you're someone who ends up traveling a lot to Taiwan or Japan, Line is the app that you're going to want to get. So I thought, well, I'll go, and if it's just about studying English, then I'll give her the best I have as an English teacher. And, maybe it will work, maybe it won't, but I'll be honest with her that it's a little far for me, but we'll just try. And I told her that as well, because she said, would you come to Taipei? I don't want to go to Taiwan where you are. I said, sure, well, we can try it and see if it works for us. But if my suspicions were correct, and actually my coworker was trying to set me up with her cousin, then I might as well go meet her and just see what it's like, because from the app, her profile photo, she was pretty hot. And also she had a nice personality in the few messages we exchanged while setting up a time to meet. So we set up a time to meet, 11 a.m. I show up at 10:45 a.m. I don't like to be late, especially when I'm traveling to other cities. I always count extra time just in case there's a little hiccup in my travel route. So I get there early, and she ends up getting there late. She ends up getting there like 20 minutes late. So there's like about 30-40 minutes while I'm just sitting in this cafe. Now, normally that would upset me a little bit, but as it would happen, I don't know if it was the few cocktails I had the night before, if it was my breakfast that I had at the local greasy breakfast shop down the street, but my stomach was acting up. So those 35 extra minutes I ended up putting to use, clearing myself out, and ended up also getting the most comfortable seats, because when I was in Starbucks, I got the worst seat, and then I saw people leave from the best seats, got the best seats, and I meet this woman. She comes in, and my first thoughts are, she's way too hot for you, Ryan. She's too young, too hot, because she looked young, and she was pretty hot. But she wasn't actually as young as I thought. She was 33, which isn't too young for me. And immediately, she tells me that actually she wants to study English, but I would say that my impression was that that's not really only what it was about, because we just immediately start talking about love and babies, like pretty early on in the conversation. She's a very open person, and I'm an open person, and I usually don't start off with talking about my history, like my Japanese wife who took off with our kids and all of that. But she opened up about how she had recently got out of a very serious relationship, even a marriage engagement, and very recently, and was hoping to have a baby in the future. And we even talked about, sort of the right philosophy to have going into a marriage for a child's success, So this is the main thing we're talking about right away. So, and I'm writing down these English words, but she's not asking that many questions about them, or really looking at them, or repeating them. So, I'm not saying that she doesn't have a goal of improving her English. She probably does, but I did have a feeling that my suspicions were correct, that basically my coworker was setting me up with her, or her up with me, or just both of us. So I thought, well, okay. I still thought she was too hot for me, though. And very interesting. I mean, very, very interesting woman. I will tell you that. I really enjoyed talking to her. But the only thing is, I was a little tired, and the conversation wasn't short. Usually when I would do private English lessons before in China and Japan, they'd be like 1 hour long, rarely longer than that. This private English lesson went on for 5.5 hours, maybe even a little more. I mean, she got there at 11:30, and we didn't leave until after 5 p.m. We stayed in Starbucks the whole time. If you've ever watched like a 3-hour podcast where people are talking and you go, I don't know if I could talk to someone for that long. Well, imagine 5.5 hours. We sat in there for 5.5 hours and we talked about everything, work, life, love, children, philosophy, travel, just everything. And I would say for the most part, it was really fun. It was really fun. We laughed a lot, which is always a good sign. But I still couldn't really 100% suss her out, like how she felt, If there was chemistry, it was just weird. So I just took it for what it was and had this nice conversation with her, said goodbye, went back to Taoyuan, and I was like, what the hell happened there? It was like I had a really vague, cloudy feeling. Maybe I was just exhausted from all that talking. But I really didn't know what that was about. No money was exchanged, although she did buy me a croissant sandwich and a lemonade. And she was a really darling woman to me. I'm glad I went. But I didn't ask for money. We didn't even discuss it. It just seemed apparent to me that it wasn't about English teaching, so I wasn't going to ask for money. And yeah, I thought, wow, it'd be interesting to see her again. So I messaged her. I said, hey, really great to meet you. You're a very interesting woman. Hope you have a nice night. And she says, yeah, that was so great talking to you. Have a nice night, And that was that. And then the next day, she sends me a message like, hey, Ryan, about the money for the English lesson. How much do I owe you? Send me your bank account and I'll send it to you. Let me know. And I replied, yeah, we could do that. You could send me money. Or how about we have another lesson and you could pay me back by buying me a few drinks. We did pretty good with coffee. Let's see how we do with alcohol. Because we had talked how we both liked wine and alcohol and whatnot. We had actually a lot of similarities. And then she didn't read that message. And she didn't reply to that message. That was like 2 days ago. So I don't know if she ghosted me. I don't know. I just have this weird, vague feeling. So I guess why I told you that story is I just wanted to share how weird it can be as a private English teacher. This was the first one I did in Taiwan. Didn't get any money. Had this 5.5 hour intense conversation with a lot of laughs. Got a free croissant and a lemonade. Had an interesting time, but very, very confused. And I would say private English teaching in general, in my experience, going back, 10 years ago when I was in Japan, it was a very confusing experience where a lot of my students, they at first seemed like they were interested in learning English, and then I realized they just needed a friend. And a lot of women, sometimes not, at the very first get-go, you could see that they were looking for a husband. Because they're at that age, women around the early mid-30s get at that age. That's a whole nother topic where they're sort of like heat-seeking missiles for semen to give them a baby. Not saying that this was this, that in this case this was it, but I have met a lot of those women before. You just never know. And you can't assume one way or the other because sometimes they really are just looking for an English teacher. And I'm open to both. I'm open to earning some side cash. I'm open to just meeting interesting people, which is why I decided to go. I'm glad I did, even though she kind of ghosted me. And I didn't say anything, inappropriate, I don't think, saying that we could have drinks instead. Maybe that was it. But she didn't even read the message. Or if she did, she read it in her notifications and didn't respond. And it just left me with this weird feeling. But nevertheless, I will continue giving private English lessons with beautiful women in the future, should I be so lucky. And I just kind of wanted to make a video about what's been happening And if you have any questions or comments, put it down below. Give me a thumbs up, and I will see you next time. My name is Ryan. Bye. Bye-bye.